The morning started like many others in her life, quiet, rushed, and full of small worries. She woke before the alarm because sleep rarely stayed long with her. She lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the day ahead. It was not just another work day, it was the day she had agreed to meet someone in person after a long time. The thought made her chest feel tight and hopeful at the same time. She lived alone in a small place that felt safe but sometimes too quiet. Past experiences had taught her to be careful with people, especially with expectations. She had learned to keep her hopes low, so disappointment would not hurt as much. This meeting was supposed to be simple, just a walk and some conversation. Nothing fancy, nothing that could break her heart. The person she was meeting was a single dad. Someone who spoke gently in messages, someone who never rushed her for replies, someone who talked more about everyday life than big promises. That was what made her agree. He did not try to impress, he only tried to understand. She chose her clothes carefully, wanting to look neat but not too dressed up. She looked at herself in the mirror longer than usual, fixing small things that probably did not matter. Her hands shook a little as she tied her shoes. She laughed softly at herself, thinking how strange it felt to be nervous again outside. The sky was cloudy but bright enough to give hope. The street smelled like rain from earlier in the morning. Puddles sat quietly along the sidewalk. She checked the time and realized she was already running late. Panic rose, but she pushed it down and started walking faster. She crossed a narrow path near a construction area. Her foot slipped. The ground was softer than she expected. In a moment, she lost balance and fell. Her hands hit the ground first, followed by her knees. Cold, wet mud spread across her clothes. Her bag landed beside her, soaking in the mess. She froze for a second, staring at herself. Her heart dropped. She slowly stood up, looking at the damage. Her pants were stained. Her shoes were covered. Her hands were brown and sticky. People passed by, some glanced. Some looked away. No one stopped her. Face burned with embarrassment, she wanted to disappear. Right there on the spot, she thought about turning back, going home and pretending this day never happened. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced them back. She had waited too long for this chance, and now it felt ruined. She tried to clean herself using tissues from her bag, but it only made things worse. The mud had already soaked in. She looked at the time again. She was now even later. The weight of shame pressed on her chest, her mind filled with old memories of being judged, of being rejected. For small things, she sat on a bench for a moment, breathing slowly. Her thoughts raced. He will think she does not care. He will think she is messy. He will think she is not worth the effort. She told herself that these were just thoughts, but they felt. Rielsha considered sending a message to cancel, but her fingers would not move. Something inside her whispered that running away would only repeat the same old story. She stood up again, took a deep breath, and decided to go. Anyway, with each step she felt eyes on her, even if none were there. Her clothes felt heavy. Her confidence felt lighter than air. She reached the meeting place, a small open area with trees and benches. She spotted him from a distance, standing calmly, looking around. Her heart beat faster. She slowed down, wishing she could hide behind something. She imagined the look of disappointment on his face. She imagined the awkward silence that would follow. She imagined him turning away when he finally noticed her. He smiled, a simple, warm smile, not forced, not surprised, just kind. She stopped a few steps away, unsure what to say. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She gestured to her clothes, feeling foolish. She waited for a reaction, any reaction. Her hands trembled as she stood. They were exposed not just by mud, but by fear. This was the moment she believed would decide everything. The air felt still around them. She expected judgment. She expected discomfort. She expected the date to end before it even began. But something different was about to happen. This was only the beginning. She stood there waiting. Her body felt stiff and her thoughts felt loud. The silence around them felt longer than it truly was. She expected him to step back, or look confused, or ask why she came like this, but he did none of those things. He looked at her clothes, then at her face. His eyes did not change. There was no shock or discomfort, only calm. He did not rush to speak. He gave her time to breathe. That small pause made her chest loosen just a little. She tried to explain with slow words. She said she slipped. She said she almost did not come. Her voice was low and shaky. She avoided his eyes, feeling embarrassed about how she looked. She prepared herself for a polite excuse for him to leave instead. He nodded gently. He listened, like the story mattered, like she mattered. He did not interrupt or smile in a way that felt forced. When she finished speaking, he said it was okay. He said days like this happened. He said he was glad she still came. Those words caught her off guard. She blinked, unsure if she heard right. She expected disappointment, but she felt acceptance. Instead, it confused her in a good way. They started walking together slowly. She tried to keep some distance, afraid the mud might bother him, but he walked beside her like nothing was wrong. He matched her pace. He did not look away or act uncomfortable as they walked. He talked about small things, the weather, the trees around them. A funny moment from his morning, his voice was steady and warm. She noticed how he spoke with care, choosing simple words, not trying to impress. She slowly began to relax. Her shoulders dropped. Her steps became easier. The fear inside her softened. She realized he was not focused on her clothes. He was focused on her. They reached a bench and sat down. There was space between them, but it felt safe, not awkward. The air felt lighter now. She noticed her hands were no longer shaking. He shared that he was a single dad. He spoke about his child. With quiet pride, he talked about busy mornings, packed lunches, and tired evenings. There was no sadness in his tone, only honesty. Listened closely, feeling something shift inside her. She had met people before who talked about themselves only to impress. This felt different. This felt real. He told her that life had taught him patience. He said plans often change and you learn to adjust. He smiled softly as he said this, and for a moment she wondered if he was talking about more than just life. Shy looked down at her muddy shoes and laughed quietly. A real laugh, not forced, he noticed, and smiled back. That small shared moment made her feel human again. He admitted she almost turned back. She admitted she felt ashamed of how she looked, saying it out loud made her eyes sting. She waited for judgment again, but it never came. He said something that stayed with her. He said everyone arrives carrying something. Sometimes it shows on the outside, sometimes it stays hidden. He said what matters is that you still show up. Those words settled deep in her heart. She felt seen, not just understood, but accepted. In that moment, the mud did not matter. The delay did not matter. What mattered was this calm connection growing between them. They continued talking about everyday life, work, struggles, simple joys, quiet dreams. There was no pressure to be perfect, no need to perform. She felt like she could just be herself. Time passed without them noticing. The earlier tension felt far away, replaced by ease. She realized she was smiling more than she had in a long time. As they stood up to continue walking, she noticed something important. She was no longer thinking about the mud. She was thinking about how comfortable she felt beside him. What she thought had ruined everything was slowly turning into something unexpected. This moment was changing her perspective, and the day was far from over. As they continued walking, he suggested a small nearby park she had not noticed before. It was quiet, filled with trees and soft grass. He said it was a place he liked to bring his child when they needed fresh air. She followed him, unsure, but curious. The path led them past benches, small ponds, and shaded areas where birds moved slowly. She kept glancing at her clothes, but he did not seem to care. His presence felt steady and comforting. She realized that for the first time in a long while, she did not need to hide anything. He did not make her feel awkward or less worthy because of a mistake she had made at one point. He stopped and pointed to a fallen branch on the path. He smiled and said that life sometimes throws obstacles, and it is okay to step over them or around them. She laughed quietly, feeling the meaning behind his words. They found a bench near the pond, and he motioned for her to sit. She hesitated slightly, feeling the mud on her clothes, but he only said it was okay. She sat carefully, trying not to make a mess. His calm acceptance made her feel less self-conscious. Asked if she wanted to walk barefoot on the grass. She looked at him, puzzled. He said it would feel freeing. She hesitated, then slowly took off her shoes and felt the soft earth under her feet. The sensation was strange but comforting at the same time. She laughed softly at herself and looked at him. He smiled warmly and said that sometimes the simplest things can bring happiness. She realized that he was teaching without teaching, showing without telling. In that small moment she felt connected. Not just to him, but to the world around them. They began talking about childhood memories. She told him about small things she remembered from school, the smell of rain, the sound of leaves in the wind. He shared moments from his own past, moments of fear, moments of joy, moments of being a child alone, yet learning to care for someone else. His stories were honest and filled with small wisdom. She noticed how he spoke about challenges with acceptance, not bitterness. How he explained mistakes as lessons and hard times as temporary. Her heart felt lighter listening to him at one point. She said she had never met anyone who could make her feel so safe so quickly. He said that safety was a choice, not just a feeling. You have to trust yourself enough to allow someone else to show care. She thought about how difficult that had been. In the past, they noticed a small bird struggling near the pond. She instinctively moved closer to help, but he stopped her gently and said it was okay to observe first. She watched as he carefully helped the bird back to safety without rushing or panicking. The way he acted quietly yet effectively made her see his character even more. Clearly, she felt admiration growing. She realized that he did not need grand gestures to show kindness. His actions were small, yet powerful, showing empathy and attention to detail. She felt that if he could treat a bird this way, he could treat people the same way. As the afternoon sun began to filter through the trees, he suggested they sit quietly for a while. She agreed, and they both leaned back on the bench looking at the water reflecting soft light. She felt a calm she had not felt in years. Began talking about how being a single parent had taught him patience, humility, and understanding. She listened intently, realizing that his experiences had shaped him into someone thoughtful, someone who valued actions more than appearances. She thought about her own life and how often she judged herself too harshly. She admitted to him that she felt ashamed when she arrived covered in mud. She expected a lecture or teasing, but he said it did not matter. He said he saw her courage for showing up despite discomfort. That sentence stayed with her. He asked her what she enjoyed doing when she felt free. She thought for a moment, then spoke about small joys: painting, walks, reading. He listened carefully, nodding occasionally, adding his own small experiences. She realized that he was genuinely interested, not just asking questions for conversation, but to understand her. Time passed unnoticed as they shared stories and laughter. She noticed her earlier fear and embarrassment had faded, replaced by ease. She felt seen and valued, not for perfection, but for simply being herself. At one point, a gentle breeze blew across the pond, and he said, "Sometimes the world reminds you to slow down and appreciate the moment." She looked at him and understood that this was what he was doing, showing her how to see life differently, not forcing, but guiding gently. She began to feel hope growing inside. She thought about how easily she could have turned back at the mud, thinking the day was ruined. She realized the mud had become a symbol of vulnerability, and that by staying, she had allowed something meaningful to happen. He stood and offered his hand to help her up. She hesitated, then took it, feeling a surge of warmth. The simple touch was reassuring, not romantic, yet it carried weight. It felt safe and grounding. They started walking again past the pond, and under shaded trees she noticed birds flying freely and felt a strange connection to them. Her heart felt lighter, as if the burden of embarrassment had been lifted by his calm presence. He spoke about life being unpredictable, and how small actions often mattered more than big gestures. She nodded, understanding that his words applied to more than just the day, but to life itself. She began to see the mud not as a mistake, but as an opportunity that led to this connection. By the time they left the park, she felt a shift within herself. She was no longer thinking about appearances or perfection. She was thinking about trust, kindness, and patience. She realized that he had not only been present, but had shown her how to accept herself. She looked at him and felt gratitude. She wanted to express it, but words felt small compared to the experience. She simply smiled and knew he understood. Walking back, she noticed that she did not mind the mud anymore. It had served as an unexpected path to something real, something human and honest. She thought about the rest of the day and felt curiosity about what else might unfold. She realized that what she had thought ruined had actually become the beginning of something new. She felt a quiet hope and a sense of possibility that she had not felt in a long time, and the connection between them deepened as they continued their slow walk back through the streets of the city. Feeling lighter, freer, and more understood than either had expected as they walked back toward the city streets. She noticed the way he moved calmly through the crowd. It was as if nothing could disturb his peace. She felt inspired by his ability to stay present. She thought about her own life, and how often small things made her anxious. She realized that part of what she admired about him was not just what he said, but how he lived each moment. They reached a small coffee shop she had not seen before. He suggested they sit for a while. She hesitated, thinking about the mud and her appearance, but he said that it did not matter, that he enjoyed spending time with her as she was. She felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words inside. The air was warm and smelled faintly of coffee and baked goods. The atmosphere was quiet and comfortable. They found a corner where they could sit without feeling rushed or observed. She tried to smooth her clothes, but he gently stopped her, saying that it was fine to just relax. They ordered drinks. She chose tea while he chose something simple. She was surprised at how natural it felt to talk with him about small things, about the taste of the tea, about the colors outside the window. She realized she had not felt so relaxed in a long time. He noticed her hesitation and smiled softly. He said it was normal to feel embarrassed, but that sometimes showing vulnerability allowed others to connect with you. She thought about the mud, about how she had almost turned back, and realized that by staying, she had already taken a step toward connection. As they sat sipping their drinks, he asked about her family and childhood memories. She spoke about small things, about weekends spent, reading about holidays and quiet times at home. He listened with full attention, nodding occasionally and asking gentle questions. She felt valued in a way that was new to her. He shared a story about a mistake he had made as a parent, something small but meaningful. She listened closely, feeling his honesty and humility. She realized that he was not pretending to be perfect, and that this made him even more trustworthy and approachable. At one point, she felt nervous again. She looked at her reflection in the window and saw the mud stain. She felt a flicker of old anxiety. He noticed her glance and said that appearances were temporary, but kindness and honesty lasted. He said that what he saw in her was courage and heart, not stains or clothes. Those words made her pause. She felt gratitude welling up inside her. She realized that she had feared judgment but had found acceptance instead. She smiled softly, feeling relief and warmth. He suggested they take a short walk outside the shop to enjoy the fresh air. She agreed. They moved slowly down the street, noticing the sounds of the city, the movement of people, the way sunlight hit the buildings. She felt present in a way she had not felt for years. Along the way, he stopped and helped an elderly woman carry her bag up a small step. She watched quietly and felt admiration for his natural kindness. The way he acted without seeking recognition made her heart feel lighter. She felt inspired to share a small act of her own. She offered to help a child who had dropped a toy nearby. He smiled at her quietly, encouragingly. She realized that kindness could be shared silently and still carry meaning. They reached a small park again. He suggested sitting under a tree. She agreed, and they sat side by side, noticing birds flying and leaves moving in the breeze. She felt calm and safe in his presence. The earlier fear of embarrassment seemed distant now. He began to talk about hopes and dreams, not as big, unrealistic plans, but small, meaningful goals. He spoke about wanting to be a better parent, a better friend, a better listener. She listened intently, feeling that his words reflected real effort and intention. She shared her own small dreams about learning more about herself and finding peace in everyday life. The conversation turned to fears. She admitted she often feared rejection and failure. He listened carefully and said that everyone experiences those fears, but that courage is found in moving forward despite them. She thought about the mud and how showing up had been a small act of courage. She realized that moments of discomfort could lead to growth. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small notebook. He said he sometimes wrote thoughts and memories. She felt curious. He offered to share some pages with her. She accepted, carefully reading words that were simple yet meaningful. They spoke of gratitude for small things, for moments of connection, and for learning from mistakes. She felt touched. He did not share to impress, but to show his perspective. She realized that this simple gesture showed trust and openness. She felt a connection, growing not just through words, but through shared understanding and presence. After While he suggested walking again, they moved slowly, noticing small details. The way sunlight passed through the trees, the sounds of water from a small fountain. She felt calm and centered. His presence was steady and grounding, allowing her to feel more herself than she had in a long time. She thought about how the day had begun. With embarrassment and mud, she laughed quietly to herself, realizing that what she thought was ruined had become one of the most meaningful days of her life. She felt grateful for his patience, understanding, and quiet strength. As they approached a quiet street, he suggested stopping to rest. She agreed, and they sat on a low wall. He spoke softly about moments that seemed small, but held great meaning. She nodded, understanding that sometimes the simplest gestures revealed the truest intentions. She realized that she had learned something important about connection and trust, about courage and vulnerability. She felt a sense of hope that had been missing for years. He noticed her quiet reflection and said that life often gives unexpected moments that teach more than carefully planned ones. She smiled softly, knowing he was right. The day had started with fear, embarrassment, and doubt. But now she felt a deep sense of understanding, connection, and gratitude. She realized that what she had thought ruined had actually been a path to something honest and human. As they stood to continue walking, she felt lighter, freer, and more seen. She felt curiosity and hope for what the rest of the day might bring. They continued walking slowly through the streets. She felt a sense of calm that she had not experienced in a long time. The city noises felt distant. Her thoughts felt quieter. She realized that the earlier tension of mud, embarrassment, and fear had disappeared, replaced by something much gentler. He pointed out small things along the way. The way sunlight reflected off windows, the pattern of leaves moving in the wind, the small smiles of strangers walking past. He seemed to notice everything, and she felt drawn to his quiet awareness. She began to notice things too, feeling present with each step. She thought about how easy it would have been to turn back at the beginning of the day. The mud had seemed like the end of everything. She laughed softly to herself, realizing that what she had thought was a disaster had turned into one of the most meaningful days she could remember. He suggested sitting by a small fountain. She agreed. They found a bench nearby and sat down. The sound of the water was soothing. The breeze moved softly through the area. She felt the comfort of being beside someone who did not judge and who valued presence over appearances. They spoke about simple joys and small victories. He shared moments from his life about raising a child and the lessons learned. She listened intently, feeling the depth of his experiences. She realized that he had lived with patience and thoughtfulness, and that his perspective was shaped by care and responsibility. She began to open up about her own experiences, not with shame but with honesty. She spoke about fears of being judged, about past disappointments, about moments of loneliness. He listened fully, not interrupting or offering platitudes, but simply hearing her and acknowledging what she said. His reactions were gentle, supportive, and validating. She felt seen in a way that felt rare. She realized that true connection did not require perfection, but honesty. She felt trust growing naturally between them. He suggested they take a walk along a quiet path. She agreed. They moved slowly, noticing the small things, the smell of fresh earth, the sounds of birds and children playing in the distance. The day felt timeless. She felt fully present and alive. At one point she tripped slightly on an uneven path. He reached out to steady her, but did not make a big deal of it. He spoke softly about how small stumbles happened to everyone and that they were part of life. She felt warmth spread through her body, realizing that he had taken something that could have been embarrassing and made it gentle and safe. They sat on a low wall near a garden. He began to talk about hope and resilience, not as abstract ideas, but as everyday choices. Spoke about seeing beauty in small moments, about valuing people for their heart, not their appearance. She felt that he was sharing wisdom from living fully and consciously. She thought about how the mud at the beginning of the day had seemed like the worst thing imaginable. Now it felt like a necessary part of the story. She realized that moments of vulnerability could lead to connection and understanding. She felt gratitude for having stayed for the day. He suggested a quiet place where they could sit and watch the sunset. She agreed. They found a spot with a clear view of the sky. The colors were soft and warm. She felt a sense of peace as they watched together. He did not speak much, allowing the moment to hold its weight. She felt connected not just to him but to the world around her. They talked quietly as the sky changed hues. She shared thoughts about small dreams and hopes. He spoke about the importance of patience and acceptance. She realized that his calm presence had helped let go of fear and embarrassment she felt. Her heart lightened with understanding. As the light faded, he suggested walking back slowly. She agreed. They moved with ease. She noticed that the earlier fear of judgment had disappeared, replaced by comfort and trust. She felt that she could be herself, fully without fear of rejection. On the way, she reflected on the day. The accident, the mud, the initial embarrassment had all been part of a larger lesson. She realized that true connection comes not from perfection, but from showing up and being present. She felt gratitude for his patience, understanding, and quiet kindness. They reached a quiet street near where they had first met. She felt a sense of completion, but also a sense of curiosity about what the future might hold. She realized that this day had shifted something inside her, giving hope and courage. She felt lighter, freer, and more human. He noticed her reflection and spoke softly about how life gives unexpected gifts through small moments and simple gestures. She nodded, understanding fully. She realized that by staying despite discomfort, she had allowed something meaningful to grow. She felt a deep sense of connection and trust. She realized that the day had taught her about patience, kindness, vulnerability, and acceptance. She felt a sense of peace that had been missing for years. She smiled softly, feeling hope and gratitude. They stopped walking for a moment and looked at each other without words. The silence felt complete, comfortable, and full. She felt understood without explanation. She felt seen without judgment. As they parted for the evening, she felt a warmth that lingered. She realized that what had started as a day ruined by mud had become a day full of human connection, trust, and hope. She felt grateful for the gentle guidance his presence had provided, and for the courage she had found within herself. The day had begun with embarrassment and doubt. It had transformed into a lesson about patience, kindness, and the value of being present. She realized that sometimes the moments we fear the most lead to the deepest understanding. She walked home feeling lighter, freer, and ready to embrace the small joys life had to offer. The next morning, she woke feeling different. She stretched slowly and noticed a calm she had not felt in a long time. The events of the previous day came back in small, vivid details. The mud, the walk, the park, the quiet conversations. She smiled softly, realizing how much those moments had changed her perspective. She remembered how embarrassed she had felt at first, how she thought the day was ruined, how every step had seemed heavy and uncertain. Now she saw that each step had led to something meaningful and unexpected. She felt grateful that she had chosen to stay. Her thoughts turned to him. She wondered how he always seemed so calm and present. She realized that part of what made him different was the way he paid attention to small details and small acts of kindness. She thought about how he had helped her feel safe without forcing anything. She felt a warmth that was gentle and deep. She decided to take a slow walk to clear her mind. She stepped outside, feeling the crisp morning air. She noticed small things around her, the birds, the faint smell of wet earth from the previous day, the soft sounds of the city waking up. She felt a connection to the world she had not felt before. As she walked, she thought about how easy it had been to focus on embarrassment and fear before she realized that she had spent too much time worrying about what others thought or how things looked. She understood now that what mattered was presence and care and honesty. She felt a quiet strength grow within her. She stopped by a small bench near a fountain and sat down watching the water ripple. She reflected on the lessons from the previous day. She realized that the mud had been a symbol of vulnerability and courage. She thought about how staying had allowed her to experience something rare, something real. Her mind drifted to the idea of connection. She thought about how he had not judged her or tried to impress her. He had simply been himself, and that authenticity had allowed her to open up too. She felt inspired to carry that honesty into other parts of her life. She remembered small gestures he had made, the way he had shared his stories, the way he had noticed little things, the way he had acted calmly when she tripped or felt embarrassed. She realized that kindness was not always loud or dramatic. It could be quiet, thoughtful, and consistent. She felt a desire to emulate that in her own life. She took a slow, deep breath and noticed how her body felt lighter. Her mind was less cluttered with worry and fear. She realized that part of what made her anxious before was a habit of expecting disappointment. She felt a shift. She wanted to believe that good things could happen unexpectedly, and that courage sometimes meant simply showing up. She decided to walk further, noticing the small street she had never explored. She saw children playing and smiled at their joy. She noticed people interacting and felt curious about their stories. She realized that the world was full of small moments of connection and kindness if one paid attention. The following week continued with careful meetings and quiet communication, sharing small moments in cafes, parks, and walks. Each meeting revealed new insights and appreciation for character and values. Laughter and gentle support became the rhythm of their growing bond. He noticed how natural it felt to be with her. Her presence brought quiet joy. She noticed his patience and honesty. They realized that small, consistent gestures were more meaningful than grand declarations. At home, he balanced routines with the child and meetings with her, realizing life required careful attention to responsibilities and emotions. He felt gratitude for the growing connection, understanding that patience and honesty would shape their relationship. One evening, they planned a quiet dinner at a small restaurant, talking about values, life experiences, and hopes for the future. Connection required listening, understanding, and care. They felt a deepening trust and respect for each other. They walked home slowly, noticing small details. The quiet moments allowed reflection on feelings and the journey from a simple request to meaningful companionship. He felt hope. She felt the same, appreciating the slow, careful pace at home. He continued routines with the child, homework, dinner, and bedtime stories. The balance required attention, but brought fulfillment. He realized love could grow slowly through consistent care. Evenings were spent sharing messages, discussing honesty, patience, trust, and growth. He felt connection deepening. She felt the same, recognizing that meaningful connection required time, care, and attention. Weeks passed with quiet meetings and shared experiences, visiting parks, cafes, and shops, sharing stories, and observing life, discussing dreams, fears, and hopes. Trust was strengthened with each encounter, appreciating character and valuing kindness. They learned that true connection was built on trust, respect, and quiet understanding rather than dramatic gestures. One afternoon, they walked along a street, discussing small acts of kindness and how these shaped people, sharing routines and family traditions, laughing at incidents, observing small details in life. He continued daily routines with the child, meals, homework, and stories, noticing curiosity, joy, and small victories, feeling gratitude for balance between responsibility and connection, understanding that love could grow meaningfully. Through Corinne, the evenings they shared quiet reflections and plans, discussing honesty, patience, trust, and the growth of connection. Appreciating the slow pace, allowing bond to deepen. One weekend, a quiet garden visit, observing flowers, birds, leaves, sharing childhood experiences, favorite memories, simple dreams for the future. Quiet companionship strengthened trust, allowing feelings to grow naturally. Watching the sky change colors, he felt quiet happiness and calm. She felt the same, sharing small smiles without words, understanding that connection was shown in actions, in shared moments, and patience to allow feelings to develop. Returning home focused on child routines, meals, homework, stories, balance between responsibilities and new connection brought joy, fulfillment, realizing life could hold multiple meaningful relationships if approached with honesty and correctness. Continued with quiet conversation over calls and messages, sharing thoughts and small stories, appreciating the slow pace, allowing connection to deepen. He felt calm. She felt the same, recognizing meaningful connection requires attention and patience. Weeks continued with quiet meetings, shared experiences, careful attention to responsibilities. Each day revealed character, values, kindness, appreciating each other, understanding that connection is strengthened through honesty, patience, care, and shared experiences. sitting quietly observing the world around them, reflecting on journey from simple requests to real emotions, sharing quiet smiles, recognizing that care, patience, and honesty transformed a simple day into meaningful connection, returning home, focusing on daily routines with child, noticing small joys, simple happiness, feeling gratitude. It's understanding that love, care, and responsibility coexist and enrich. Life evenings spent sharing reflections, plans, thoughts, discussing honesty, patience, trust, growth of connection, feeling hope, calm, understanding that meaningful connection requires time, attention, and care. Days continued with quiet companionship, small experiences, and careful attention to responsibilities. Each encounter strengthened trust and understanding, appreciating character and valuing kindness, noticing thoughtfulness, patience, realizing meaningful connection is built through consistency, care, shared understanding. One evening walking through familiar streets, observing life, reflecting on growth of connection, sharing quiet smiles, understanding that care, patience, honesty transformed a simple request into meaningful, real connection. Home, continuing routines with child meals, homework stories, noticing curiosity, joy, small victories, feeling gratitude, understanding that responsibility and connection coexist, enriching life evenings. Sharing quiet conversations, reflecting on trust, honesty, patience, growth of connection, feeling hope, calm, recognizing meaningful connection requires time, attention, care. Weeks continued with quiet meetings, small experiences, attention to responsibilities. Each day revealed character values, kindness, appreciating each other, connection, strengthened through honesty. Patience, care, shared experiences. One afternoon, sitting quietly observing the world, reflecting on journey from simple requests to real emotions. Sharing quiet smiles, understanding that care, patience, honesty transformed a pretend day into meaningful connection.